Okay, hello everybody. We are now in Unit 2. So this is Chapter 5, Early Explorers of Texas, Lesson 1, The Objective. How did the first Europeans come to the Americas? We will learn about the early explorers to Texas, and I will learn about the explorer Cabeza de Vaca. Let's see if we can listen to this. I think I'll put this in Edpuzzle. I'll put that sound in Edpuzzle. Here's a picture of the Columbus. Oh, that was Cabeza de Vaca. Here's a picture of the Columbus expedition. Here's a map of all the different explorers that went around and through Texas. A timeline. Vocabulary for you to learn. All right, here's the reading. The Spanish discover a new world. In the 1400s, Europeans looked for new trade routes to India and East Asia. They wanted to avoid the land routes across the Middle East because the Ottomans, who controlled the area, charged traders high fees. Until the late 1400s, sailors had to stay near the coast as they traveled. Navigation tools were not good enough to allow them to cross oceans in their ships. In 1488, Portuguese explorer Bartolomeu Diaz sailed down the west coast of Africa. He then continued on past the southern tip of the continent. His voyage showed that there might be a sea route from Europe all the way to Asia. Soon after, the Italian sailor Christopher Columbus suggested sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean in order to reach Asia. Although Columbus was Italian, it was Spain that funded or paid for his voyage. Columbus left Spain with 3 small ships in August 1492. He and his sailors finally saw land on October 12, 1492. Columbus came ashore on an island in the Caribbean Sea, and he claimed it for Spain. Columbus had reached a part of the world that the people of Europe had not seen before. In the years after his voyage, other Spanish explorers also crossed the Atlantic. In each place that they landed, they claimed the land and all its resources for Spain. The beginnings of colonization. How did the first Europeans come to Texas? In the 1500s, Spaniards explored much of the American mainland. Spain claimed many islands in the Caribbean, most of South America, all of Central America and Mexico, and parts of what is now the United States. Millions of people already lived in these places. However, the Spanish used their superior weapons to build an empire. Soldier explorers called conquistadors helped conquer and settle these vast lands for Spain. At the same time, they gained wealth and glory for themselves. And here's questions in your study slides that you'll need to answer in your study slides. Why did Columbus journey across the Atlantic, and who were the conquistadors, and what were their goals? In February 1519, a Spanish conquistador named Hernan Cortez landed in what is now Mexico. There, he and his small army conquered the great Aztec Empire. They tore down the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. They stole the city's treasure. On the city's ruins, they built Mexico City. It became the capital of New Spain. New Spain was the Spanish Empire in the Americas. Many Spanish conquistadors followed Cortez. They seized other parts of the Americas. Spanish settlers followed the conquistadors. They built towns, laid roads, and opened mines. They started farms and ranches. Among the Spanish settlers were Catholic priests and nuns. Spain was a Roman Catholic nation. Its rulers wanted to convert the Native Americans to Catholicism. Priests and nuns built missions or religious settlements. Often the mission was the first Spanish settlement in an area. Also in 1519, Alonso Alvarez de Pineda became the first European to explore the Texas coast. He mapped the coastline from what is today Florida all the way to Mexico. He reported his findings to the governor of Jamaica. Then he went back to Mexico to start a settlement. He died there during a Native American uprising in 1520. In 1527, Alvar Nuñez Cabeza de Vaca joined a large expedition led by the conquistador Panfilo de Narvaez. They were the first Europeans to enter what is now Texas. Narvaez hoped to conquer the area between Florida and Mexico, but he failed. Then a storm drove his group onto an island near what is today Galveston. Cabeza de Vaca named the island Majado, which is Spanish for the Isle of Misfortune. The castaways were met by the Karankawa people who lived on the coast. The Karankawa helped the Spanish. They built fires and brought fish and roots for the Spanish to eat. Still, most of Narvaez's force soon died from disease and cold. Disease killed many of the Karankawa too. Cabeza de Vaca survived with the help of the Karankawa. He settled on a small island and became a trader. For some years, he survived by trading goods with people living on the mainland. And here is a primary source about Alonso Alvarez de Pineda. He mapped the Texas coast. He may not have ever set foot on Texas land, but just stayed in his boat. Here's some facts about Cabeza de Vaca's expedition. In 1535, Cabeza de Vaca and some companions journeyed south and west toward Mexico. Their travels lasted for many months. It's possible that they passed through present-day South and West Texas and northern Mexico. Finally, in early 1536, they reached the Spanish settlement at Culiacan, Mexico. Cabeza de Vaca's stories about his adventures amazed the Spanish. He told of herds of huge cattle with small horns, which we know as bison. Cabeza de Vaca also shared tales that he had heard about cities with huge houses and lands rich with copper, emeralds, and turquoise. He had found no gold. However, he suggested that an expedition go north to search for these treasures. Excited by the idea of finding wealth and glory, other conquistadors wanted to explore what is now Texas. Cabeza de Vaca's journey through Texas began the era called the Age of Contact. It lasted until 1690, when Spain made its first settlements in the area. And here's some questions and answers. Painting of Cabeza de Vaca. And here is some information on him about Cabeza de Vaca. I'm not going to read this. It's in your study slides. Here's a primary source. This is written by Cabeza de Vaca. He kept a journal about his time, and they actually, have some pieces of his journal that we were able to use as a primary source. The Karankawa are all warriors and so astute in guarding themselves from an enemy, as if trained in continuous wars, and in Italy, when they settle in places where their enemies can offend them, they set their lodges on the edge of the roughest and densest timber and dig a trench close to it in which they sleep. The men at arms are hidden by brushwood and have their loopholes, and are so well covered and concealed that even at close range they cannot be seen. To the densest part of the forest they open a very narrow trail, and there arrange a sleeping place for their women and children. As night sets in, they build fires in the lodges, so that if there should be spies about, these would think the people to sleep there, and before sunrise they light the same fires again. In case there are no forests wherein they can hide thus and prepare their ambushes, they settle on the plain wherever it appears most appropriate, surrounding the place with trenches protected by brushwood. In these they open loopholes through which they can reach the enemy with arrows, and those parapets they build for the night. Okay, this is your study for your Skyward quiz. This should be the last slide.